right, man. We are live, man. Welcome to another episode of the Back Row Redskins Show. On today's episode, I have a special guest, Mr. Tony Andrews. This guy right here, he is so busy. I don't even know how I was able to get him on the show. This guy right here, he's the owner of Redskins Hub, one of the largest Redskins group on Facebook, on Twitter. He's all over. He also has the Capology group, and in that group, man, the content that he gives is ridiculous. If you don't know anything about cap numbers, this is the guy to hit up. He also has the NFL Bulletin News, Fantasy Click. He got so much going on, and like I said, anything you want to know about the cap, this is the guy. Welcome to the show, Tony.
Thank you, man. And there's a lot of people. I'm just one of them. You mentioned NFL News Bulletin. House Fantasy, folks giving some fantasy advice. And the one that's been my project is NFL Cap. And then, of course, Redskins have to do a combination of change, group, coming up with 10,000 members on that. But the capology is really the interesting part like this time of year. We're here looking at some crazy TV songs. And it started for me about 5 years ago looking at the customers.
Right.
What's going on with the cap and the guarantee money? Just digging and learning. And me and Christian and the group and a couple others got together, so let's just put a group out together so we can discuss these issues.
Yeah, man, I love the group. I love the content, man. Thank you guys for allowing me to post in the group, man. It means a lot. Also, we have a lot to talk about. I want to talk. The first thing I want to talk about is how is COVID killing the cap? What can we what can we expect moving into free agency? We got the Super Bowl coming up in 2 weeks, and then it's free agency. You got the free agency coming up. You got the draft coming up. How is COVID killing the cap? Talk to me about the cap and COVID.
So let's just go back to 2018. The cap was $177 million. It goes up 6% in 2019 to 188. Then it goes up another 6% in 2020 to 198. So now you're in 2020 at 198. You've already budgeted in the next 6%, and that's how you're constructing all your contracts.
Right.
And that expected cap was going to be $210 million. But 2021 is being estimated at $176 million. That's down $34 million from where they expected it to be,
right,
or 17%, pretty much at the 2018 levels. So you start thinking about these teams, what's going to result, what's coming up? A lot more cap casualties than you've ever seen before.
Oh, wow.
And you win in this situation as a team when you have flexibility. And
so what you're telling me
now, we got 30. Go ahead.
So what you're telling me is that the rich is going to get richer.
That's one way of looking at it. Could be, or it could be you're poor, your Jacksonville with $64 million in available cap, has a field day. It could be a period like where Cleveland was, where they were having a field day with the cap and being able to pick up dead contracts just to get another player, doing all sorts of crazy stuff. So creativity is going to be rewarded. Creativity where people take a lower hit in 2021 and then build it into further out years, betting that this cap is going to go back up. But we don't know what's going on in 2022 or 2023. Nobody knows how this whole thing is going to be cleared. So which is the right way to go? That's the question.
Okay, so I pose another question to you. So out of all the position groups that are in NFL, you got the quarterbacks, you got the offensive line, specifically the left tackle, right tackle position. Those guys get paid. Then you have, a few other positions. Sometimes you get the corner, sometimes you get the high-end wide receiver. What group do you think is going to win the most this free agency?
From an absolute salary standpoint, I don't think there's one position group that's going to win. It's all going to be player by player. It's going to be determined by what your situation is and who you are going to let go out of this situation and take that that COVID cap casualty that you wouldn't have usually taken. So that's what's going to be. That's what's I would see. It's just the big names that are going to come off the board or come onto the board, I should say.
Right. Well, Tony, we got our first question. This says, Jets fan here. Y'all interested in Stafford, Watson, or Darnold? Let's kick it off with that.
Who do you think? There you go. So he's talking about three quarterbacks under contract, right?
That's
so you got two categories, and the categories are your free agent quarterbacks. So you got your Prescott, Fitzpatrick, Trubisky, Brissett, Taylor, Newton, those types, and then you got all of these people that are it's like the QBX discussion. It's the crazy discussion that's going to happen on of who can we get. Now you're talking Watson, Stafford, of course, Aaron Rodgers now is being talked at, Tagliavoa, Derek Carr, Garoppolo, Darnold, Goff, Ryan, and Wentz. So all these different quarterbacks could end up, making some moves. And one move, like the Jets going for Watson, creates another opening in a Bradford. But the question is, what's the right fit for the Redskins? What's the right fit for us? And we've got two young guys, not a lot of reps, that have injury problems. It sounds like I would want a vet at the very least, somebody to back them up. Or I want to go long. I'm going for Stafford, Watson, Rodgers, whoever. And we could start talking about which ones you want to do, and I'll tell you, kind of fill in which ones, which way I think we could go.
All right, let's start with the first quarterback on my list, Dak Prescott. What are the possibilities if the Washington football team says, hey, Dak wants at least $40 million a year, right? Okay. But with the cap situation, COVID, and the cap better than anybody, what is the possibility? What can the Washington football team do to get Dak Prescott?
So first, his last contract was a 1-year franchise deal at $31.4 million. So that's the average of the top five. The guy's unfortunately hurt. He's coming off of injury. That's got to pull down the price a little bit. But every conversation's got to start with the fact that we're looking at a 16% drop in the cap. So if you're talking about that big of drop in the cap, you got to believe that everybody's going to have to take that hit. Now, you're talking about a multi-year deal with Dak. And he really wanted a long-term deal, and then it was, no, I wanted $40 million a year. So they just decided not to do anything. I cannot believe Dak's going to be any better position than where he was today, this year at 31.4. So I would look for a 5-year deal, 4-year deal, something that gives him security, something that has the right guaranteed amount of signing. But you're going to be looking in that range, nothing more than that, I don't think.
Right. I'm also, if I had to guess, and if I had to bet, I'm not a betting man, but if I had to bet, I'll say that Dak is going to take – see, in the NFL, people talk about winning, right? I want to go to a winning team. I want to go to a winning organization, but anything can happen. We look at what happened with the San Francisco 49ers. An injury or two can make a team not a winning team, okay? It can make a team a terrible organization just off of a few injuries. I see Dak Prescott taking – the most amount of money anywhere that he can get it. Because if Deshaun Watson does get traded, this is what happens. It now turns into a league to where a franchise type player can now request a trade. I mean, we've seen it. We've seen it over and over and over again with guys like Jamal Adams and, people, different players, right? But now, let's say if Watson does get traded, right? Dak might say, yo, I'm going to go to the Jets. And I'm going to try to get more than that $31 million that you're talking about a year. And then knowing him, he's going to want a fully guaranteed deal. So what if he goes to a team, let's say like not Jacksonville, but let's say the Jets, and they pay him the house. Let's say they pay him about $38 million a year, 4-year contract, fully guaranteed, right? Then a year later, he goes, I want to get traded. It's not working. We're 1-15. I didn't sign up for this. Do you see a scenario where he can get paid elsewhere and then force a deal?
I just don't see it. the way I look at it is everything's coming down 16%. Everybody, if you want to be on that management side of the equation, you want to be a big boy and say, hey, look, this is, I want the answer. Like Deshaun Watson wants to know, who's the GM going to be, who's the coach going to be, wants to say and that kind of stuff. Well, he needs to be sitting down with the cap guy and saying, hey, we're going to be taking 16% hits everywhere. So I really think there's going to be more casualties. I think that the quarterbacks are going to try to find the place they need to be, but there's going to be a little bit of right sizing of these contracts. But I believe they'll make up for more guaranteed monies as a percentage of the total deal or the annual value. I think they'll make up with an extra year. That's kind of how I see most quarterbacks going.
Okay. Next guy on my list. This guy right here, he's either magical or he's tragic, okay? This is Ryan Fitzpatrick, Mr. Fitzmagic, a.k.a. could be Fitztragic. I like Ryan Fitzpatrick, but the knock on him is you look at the age. You look at the age and you say, wow, so if the football team was able to bring in a guy like Ryan Fitzpatrick, you would think he'll be on a one-year deal, right? And you'll think that if you're getting that Ryan Fitzpatrick, that probably means you maybe draft a guy in the second or third round that you can groom because obviously, he's an injury away and with the age and everything. But yeah, talk to me about Ryan Fitzpatrick.
So I like Ryan Fitzpatrick. I liked him back in 2019 before we went into the draft. I thought he was the bridge quarterback, and that's the way I look at him as a bridge.
Same.
He could be your backup vet. You could be looking at Allen and Heineke and saying, here's two young guys that I want to see what they can do when they, either get injured or don't perform. You got a guy that can step right in. That, to me, is the quintessential type of vet backup you want. And the cost of him, anybody can take a gander at that. In a normal year, I'd say it was $10 million a year based on the way he's been performing. Now it could be somewhere much less than that, but I think there's going to be competition for him. I think somebody else is going to want a mentor type of quarterback. I know we are going to need that when we lose Alex Smith. So, I like him at 2 year, $5.5 million a year, maybe 11 total, going up to 20 total and 10 a year. Okay. So I would do a 2-year deal with him. I think he's got enough left in the tank for that.
And one thing I'll say about Ryan Fitzpatrick is if he's on the team, he is definitely a quarterback that can get the ball to Terry McLaurin. He is not going to care if he's throwing interceptions. He's a gunslinger. And sometimes you want guys like that. As much as you want guys who take care of the ball, there are times when you're down and you need a quarterback that's going to move the ball, be aggressive, kind of like how Taylor played, right?
And somebody and Taylor and quite frankly, all three of them will throw the ball down the field. So right. I like that. I like those three as a quarterback room. I think they'll be effective. I think he's a great bridge quarterback.
Right. So in a scenario where let's say we miss out on quarterback A, B, C, D, E, F, G, Ryan Fitzpatrick could be a nice consolation prize. Then you got to, run with Heineke and Allen and just have 3 guys go out, battle, see who wins the job. And I like Ryan Fitzpatrick. Like I said, he's a gunslinger. Somebody just said, stay away from Stafford. We're actually going to get to Stafford in a minute, but we're still in the free agent possibilities. Mitch Trubisky. I know a lot of fans are not going to like this one. Mitch Trubisky. Talk to me about Mitch Trubisky, man. He's a possibility.
His market value, they've got at $8.5 million on SpotRack, a 2-year deal. The question is he never developed in Chicago. He's a big whiff for their front office. They want to get rid of him, I think. They can do anything they want to do if they don't sign a big quarterback themselves. But does somebody think that they can be like Captain Save a QB with Mitch Trubisky, the way that they were with Tannehill and maybe another Mariota, and the way he's gone to the Raiders and has a little bit of a spark? So does somebody look at that and say, where he drafted, we can turn this guy around? I see him as another quarterback that needs a lot of reps, not a good match for the Redskins at all. It's a pass.
You know what?
I think a potential landing spot would be like a backup for your boy Lamar Jackson in the
Lamar
roots.
Jackson.
Something because
That's not bad.
he can get to the edge. He can run the Jets maybe as a backup if they have a Deshaun Watson. But I think he's now playing in the backup space the same way Tannehill was, the same way Mariota had to, and Winston for that matter.
Tony, I'll disagree with you on this. You said that you don't think that Trubisky can fit in our system. I actually think that he can fit in our system. Now, he's not the most accurate quarterback. Like, I'm not a Trubisky fan. I don't want him in DC. Let me just go ahead and say that right now. But the area where I say I think he can fit is that he's mobile enough. If you get a quarterback like Trubisky to come into the system, I think that Scott Turner can move him and use him in a way that best benefits Trubisky. Now, what we're going to be looking at are those interception numbers going to creep back in? But he's very mobile, and I think he can fit what we like to do. But at the same time, I'd rather run with Taylor Heineke before I give Trubisky a chance. That's just me.
Yeah, I completely agree. I completely agree from a style play. When I look at the fit, though, I look at two young guys that we want to see what they can do, and now we got a third young guy that we got to get snaps, and we got to get worked into the mix. So really, it's more about splitting the prep between three instead of if you had a Fitzpatrick, you're not going to worry about Fitzpatrick getting reps. You're going to be more worried about, just him coming in and doing what he does.
Right. True. Next guy on my list is Jacoby Brissett. Now, you figure this will be a cheap option, but I want to hear what the money's like and what kind of deal could we possibly give Brissett.
Another bridge option. I really believe that these bridge option types of quarterbacks, the value for them are going to go down in this cap year. I look at him as about 2 years, 5.5 per year, 5 per year, maybe even cheaper with a COVID reduced cap. He was paid a lot, $15 million for 2 times $15 million for $30 million total. He kind of underperformed that. He lost his starting job. They brought in Rivers. He just hasn't performed. So he's out there. He's one of those people that you can bring in. Should you not go the high priced route, and should you not go for a free agent or a trade?
Okay. Somebody said that would be as smart as re-signing RG3 to come here. It's not a good fit here, and that's funny. So I have 2 more guys that are on the list. You got Tyrod Taylor, and then you have Cam Newton. And what I notice is on our list, pretty much everybody that I named is semi-mobile or mobile or can kind of, get out the pocket. But talk to me about Tyrod and then Cam Newton. I'm not a fan of neither one. When I do get to the quarterbacks that I like, based on the list, I'll let you know which is my favorite. But, yeah, talk to me about Tyrod and then Cam Newton.
So, he had that unfortunate incident early on that Herbert, stepped in and they never looked back. Mm-hmm. He's always been that guy that people think has potential, yet never puts it together. Virginia Tech guy, I liked him coming out of college. Always said he needed just an opportunity. Never really got it in Baltimore. He's hopped around from the Bills, took him to the playoffs that 1 year, right? And he just never has sparked and never really blossomed. But I think again, he's probably the last of the vet backups that I would bring in that I wouldn't have to worry about as much. I think he also fits into our system with the style play. He can get on the edge. He can throw the short stuff. And I like him as a quarterback as that third option. But that's the very last one I would bring in. I would not bring him
Look, when I think of Tyrod, right, here's what I see. I see a poor man's version of Alex Smith. For those who listen to the pod, hey, I was not for bringing Alex Smith in. Thank you for what you've done for the team, Alex. Thanks for, coming back and giving it your all, giving it your heart. But when I see Tyrod, I see a poor man's Alex Smith. And what I mean is you see a lot of checkdowns. You see a quarterback that's going to protect the ball and not take chances. I'd rather have a quarterback that takes some chances. A lot of people didn't like Kirk Cousins here. We're going to get into a Kirk Cousins discussion in just a minute, but at least with Kirk Cousins, he's going to take a chance. He's going to take a shot. I like quarterbacks that when you're down, you need that guy that gives you hope. I went to a game, the Washington football team, the Redskins at the time versus Atlanta. Came all the way from Nashville. My very first game in FedEx Field, I was excited, and then we started losing. And that game, Alex Smith checked down so much that Mo Harris led us in receptions and yards. I was pissed. I think Chris Thompson had a whole bunch of targets. It's like one of those like 10 catches for 59 yards. Like, I mean, and you're down. So for me, this time around, going for a quarterback, I'm looking for a guy that's gonna move the ball and that gives us a chance at winning. So now let's go ahead and get into the trade potential QBs. The biggest name on the list. Let's just go ahead and start with Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson is he's a name. I'm not saying that we get Deshaun Watson, but hey, he's a name. And like JP said on his pod, if we are in a market for a QB, why not just call and see what's available? What possible trade do you see for Deshaun Watson?
So
what would it take?
How old is he? 25, 20?
Yeah, he's under 25.
25 years old. He's at the top of his game. He just signed a new contract. There's some discontent there in Houston. He's upset with everything. He wants out. He's got a place he wants to go. I don't think it's going to be DC. But with him, it's his contract, and this is why I talk about the capology stuff.
Mm-hmm.
His contract is almost tailor-made to move in this year. For some reason, the way that they structured that deal is only a $10.5 million salary hit for just his salary for 2021. And he can be cut with the post-June 1 designation, not cut, traded for $5.4 million in dead cap. So all of that money, and we're talking about dead cap of $21 million that would be during a trade scenario, comes in 2022, $16 million of it, and that's helpful when we assume that the cap's going to be rising again, right? So number one, great contract to trade. I didn't believe it when I first saw it. I just thought there was no way to do it. But when you start digging into numbers, you can see, yes, here's the effective contract we would assume. It would be a 5-year deal, $29.3 million average a year for $146.5 million with $44 million in guaranteed at signing that's left over, and only $10.5 million the first year. So from a contract perspective, make the move. Now it's about compensation. What are you willing to give? The maximum, people maybe not realize this, but you cannot give more than 3 number ones. That is the absolute maximum that the NFL allows.
Right.
So they're talking 3 number ones. They're talking 3 number ones, a number 2, and a player. So that's on the high side. But what I think is interesting about this whole piece is we started with Deshaun Watson because that's the first news that broke. But his team isn't willing to trade him. So this thing's going to take some time.
Oh, yeah.
So during that time, during this frenzy of quarterback QBX, or whatever you want to call it, who steps in but Matt Stafford to talk about himself, the team are all aligned and letting him go. And now all that frenzy's for Watson's kind of getting swung over here to Stafford. And where I thought, if you don't mind, we'll go right into Stafford here.
Yeah, let's go ahead right on it. Right into
Stafford. There's just as many teams now are looking at that Watson that was floated and saying, well, I can't afford that. That are now interested in stepping up for Stafford. So you got number one, a ton of people that are interested in it. Number 2, his contract's not hateful. So the worst part about his situation is $19 million in dead cap that Detroit will have to take, and that's the best scenario that they can do is a pre-June 1 $19 million dead cap hit, but they got him on the books for $33 million for some sort of restructure. So they're actually saving $14 million in cap. You take dead cap hits, you have high salaries, you save what's in between. So that $19 million of dead cap, while it sounds awfully high, the alternative is having Matt Stafford in a rebuild year with a $33 million hit. And now you can go ahead and get some compensation. I'm hearing, what are you hearing? What's the latest you've heard about what he's worth?
Man, so before he became available, right, I was trying to get him on the cheap side. Thinking that, okay, when we brought in Alex Smith, he just had an amazing year, right? 2 or 3 years ago. And I mean, think about it. He was like top 5 in the MVP voting, right? So we got him for a 3rd round and a young player in Kendall Fuller. So I mean, naturally, you would think, okay, maybe we give him a 2nd and a 4th, or we give him a 2nd and a player at that time. But now that they've made him available and it's a mutual thing, that means he's going to go to the highest bidder, right? So then this is what's not helping the like our team right now. Number one, there's so many other teams that need quarterbacks. You have Phillip Rivers retiring. You have Breeze possibly retiring. You know, he's gone, right? So now what makes this a complicated situation is that it's so many other teams that are looking for a quarterback, meaning that it's going to be a bidding war, right? You have the teams in the draft, right? You have the 3 top prospects. You know, everybody wants Lawrence, Fields, Wilson, someone, what's his name, Lance. So then now you have the teams that, you know, are picking in the middle. They cannot afford to trade up to get a quarterback. So now it's just a whole market to where it has to be a 1st round pick. It's going to cost at least a 1st. I think that's where the conversation starts for the Lions. Because, okay, it's been known that, okay, you know, he's going to get traded. So now at this point, it's like, what can teams offer? And you look at the football team, I think a 1st round pick gets it done, but because there's so many other teams, maybe a 1st and a young player, maybe a Tim Settle. What do you think?
Oh, I think you're spot on. I was looking at it before the frenzy, and it was a 2 and a 4 for me, thinking that was going to be aggressive and be enough to get it. When you see where it's at now, you know, it's a 1st and a 2nd. It's a 1st and a 1st. It's but that's because the frenzy has all moved over to Stafford. The smart people are saying, you know what? That's just too high of compensation. I'm gonna pull back here. And then look, whatever happened on Watson? Well, that thing's going to happen 3-4 months from now. And,
exactly.
And Stafford, they're entertaining offers now. They've said it. Exactly. We're listening to offers. So he comes first in all that frenzy. Here's the lesson to be learned. If you're selling your house, the one thing you want to hear is that there's multiple offers.
Absolutely.
You go back to every buyer's agent and you say, look, I need your best and final. I need your best and final. We have multiple offers. And that's what you're going to get. You're going to get about 3 or 4 teams that are thinking like you and saying maybe it's 2 and a 4, maybe it's a 1st now. And then there's somebody who's going to give a 1st and a player, and they're probably going to get the deal. Plus, they have no allegiances to Stafford to try to place him in a place that he likes.
Exactly.
This is about them taking a $19 million cap hit and trying to extract the most value in a down cap year where the cap went down 17%.
Right.
And you better also believe that Stafford's going to want his deal redone. And because he's looking at his deal, he's got $20 million in 2021 that you assume a $23 million in 2022, and then he's a free agent. There's no guaranteed monies left. And you're talking about basically a $21.5 million a year deal. That's much less than what we're paying. Well, $3-4 million less than what we're paying Alex. And you know, we get a darn good player. His age, what is he? 33?
Man, he's 32. He'll be 33 February the 7th, I believe.
He's got 5 more years. So this is an extend. This is a come on over, extend you. This is going to be a deal very similar to the Alex Smith deal. We pray to God the guy doesn't get hurt. You pray to God he doesn't get hurt. But you know what? You got to protect yourself that way too. We now know about these insurance policies we can take out for devastating injuries, everything else. But I think let's talk about the player. He's a gunslinger himself. He's gutsy. Yep. He's got mox. He's also fits that mold of a Heineke and an Allen. He's a great leader. I think he's going to be a great fit. And let's not forget who we just signed as our general manager.
Exactly. And I think
I gotta believe that
the general manager is going to pull every string he can to get Stafford here. I'm pretty sure he's in, talks right now. And I'm pretty sure they're not going to tell him what other offers are around, but they can tell him, hey, offer more as a courtesy, as a favor, because he has that relationship.
We're going to need a little bit more than that. We're going to need a little bit more than that. That's
exactly.
That's the selling agent. That's the selling agent telling the buyer's agent, you need to bring that up just a tiny bit.
Just a little bit.
Somebody will. And if we don't get Stafford, we don't get Stafford. So then you turn your attention to who? Who's next on your list?
If we do not get Stafford, right? Next guy on my list, let me pull up my list real quick. Sorry about that. Next guy on my list is Derek Carr. I love Derek Carr. I love what he brings to the table. Derek Carr is a buy low candidate right now. When you look at Derek Carr, he might not be as talented as Stafford, but he's a very good quarterback. He's a very good quarterback, and make no mistakes about that. A lot of people try to downplay what Carr has done. He had that magnificent season, and mind you, he hasn't had the talent that Stafford has had to begin his career. You know what I'm saying? Stafford has had great receivers, and then you can make a case and say, okay, Stafford had a good season this year, but he only had 26 touchdowns and 10 interceptions, right? But then you look at a guy like Kirk Cousins that everybody hates. He had 35 touchdowns this year. Okay, then you can say, oh well, Kirk Cousins didn't win any games this year. Well, Stafford didn't win any games this year, so it's kind of like quarterbacks like Stafford, Cousins, Carr. I put them in the same kind of bracket, but I give Stafford. I would say Stafford is the best out of those three guys. Okay, but if you can have, let's say, Pepsi, then you can have a Colonel Bubble or something, or a great value version of Pepsi or Coke. So that's what I'm looking at when I see Derek Carr. He is very good. He's underappreciated. And then we all know that his coach loves to upgrade the quarterback position. So there's a possibility to where you can possibly get Carr and not lose a first-round pick. It's very possible. Very, very possible. So for me, if I don't get Stafford, the very best option, the very next option on my list is Derek Carr. He's under contract. Talk to me about his contract and what it looks like.
First of all, Gruden's time for him, or get off the pot on his quarterback. He's had Carr for 2 years. He knows what he has in him. He brought in Mariota. It seemed like he liked what Mariota did, but he's like, no, he's bringing Carr right back in right after Mariota and stuck with Carr. So Carr has been on some thin ice, I think, with Gruden. I think he's grown with Gruden, and Gruden, it's time for him to decide. Is he going to go and let go of Mariota? Because if you take a look at Mariota's contract and Carr's contract, between them, they're spending over $30 million a year in salary. That's a lot of money, spending on two guys that are, what did you call them? What did you call Carr? You called them
great value Coca-Cola.
The citrus pop to my Diet Mountain Dew right there, man.
Right.
That's exactly what we're talking about. And at $19.6 million in 2021, $19.9 in 2022, they get cap savings of the whole 19.6. There's no guaranteed at signing left. There's a little dead cap of $2.5 million that could be $1.25 if you wanted to go that direction. It's going to be $2.5 million, very low. There's no impediments to moving him. He's got to have an answer at quarterback. What's the Raiders' answer at quarterback? Is it Mariota? Is it going to the draft? Is it going to the draft and starting Mariota and letting some guy come in? Where they? I don't even know where the Raiders are picking in the first.
I don't know where they're picking, but I know they didn't make the playoffs, so they're definitely picking higher than us for sure. Right. So you're looking at anywhere between 10 to 15. I'm just guessing, maybe 10 to 7 or 12 to 17.
Maybe they get a third rounder for Derek Carr, right? And they take that third rounder, they take their first, and they move up, and they get one of the top three guys they want to get. So I see Carr as like you see Carr. The one thing I would say about him is you're probably looking at a third rounder, and just with the overall look of picks, the picks are going to be valued higher this year.
Absolutely,
agents are going to be valued lower, and because we're talking about that COVID cap situation, and the picks are worth a lot more to a team because there's less money to spend, and they're on that rookie salary scale.
Right. Well, let me give you some numbers. I'm a stats guy. I love stats, play a lot of fantasy, so I keep up with a lot of stats. So when you look at Derek Carr, okay, what he did last season, he had 4,100 yards passing. He had 27 touchdowns, and he had 9 interceptions. These are by far better numbers than Stafford. Okay, then you could say, well, Stafford didn't have Kenny Golladay. So what? Who did Carr have? Carr had a tight end, in Waller, and man, what's his name from the Eagles? Aguilar. That can't catch a cold. Somebody said that he can't catch COVID. But so he put up 27 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. Now, his best season came, I think, in his second season where he had 3,900 yards passing, 32 touchdowns, and 13 interceptions. So, on average, it seems like Carr is a guy that will get you anywhere between 21 to 27 touchdowns and anywhere between 9 to 13 interceptions, which isn't bad when you're throwing that many touchdowns. So, like I said, this is a great value version of Matthew Stafford, and he's younger. He's 29 years old. And to be honest, I like Carr so much that I'm willing to give a first. I'm willing to actually pay more to, yeah. I'm serious. I am willing to give up 19 to get Carr. I feel like he's a guy that you can build around. Why do I say what I say? Like I said, it all goes back to Kirk Cousins. Everybody hates him, but I think if we had Kirk Cousins with this system, I think he would work. Now, I'm not saying that he's going to be carrying us, making fourth quarter comebacks, and we don't know how he's going to play in the big game and things of that nature. But when you're looking for a starting quarterback, it's very hard to find. We've been drafting for how many years, right? And sometimes when we found quarterbacks, we've had contract issues or injuries. So if you're looking at the free agent market, it's not a lot out there. But if you're looking at a guy like Carr, like I said, he's a potential buy low candidate. I want to buy low. I want to get him for third, highest second. You got to keep that first round because you can find game-changing franchise type guys. But if you're thinking this window that we have, right? You got Allen, Payne, contracts are coming up. You know what I'm saying? You can't keep everybody on that defensive line. And if you want to go all in and say, hey, we want to compete for a playoff Super Bowl, you got to go ahead and get a guy like Carr or Stafford. And it's going to –
If I was to go ahead and put an over-under on his compensation, I'd say it's a third rounder. You're going over. You're thinking that he's going to get a first or second is the compensation for Carr.
And
I think there'll be a little bit of a dial back because of COVID, a little bit of a dial back because he's not worth as much, but at the same time, his contract's not hateful and there's not a lot of dead cap. So but we don't even know if Gruden's going to move him, right?
That's true.
Where do the Raiders fall into this whole mix? Because once you trade Watson to the Jets, and now you got a Darnold left over, does Darnold make a switch over, and does that place need a quarterback, and where does Carr fit in? So it's going to be a musical chairs situation going on. Absolutely. Schefter said he put the over under at 12, I think. Different quarterbacks that'll move teams this year. So who knows, right? That's
if what you're saying is that all it takes to get Carr is a third rounder, I'm all in. Give him the third round that we got give him our lowest third, whether it's the Trent one or the other one, it don't matter. If what you're saying is a third to get a 29-year-old quarterback, I am all in. I like Carr.
Okay, so you're in the position of I don't want to go super high dollar. I don't want to go rookie. I want to go get me an established vet,
exactly,
kind of that has some value to it, and that's an upgrade maybe from where we are potentially. I could get behind that strategy. And the question is, and it's just like when somebody says, "Oh, he's good," like Jordan Reed when healthy. Well, in the cap world, everybody says, "Well, I like him, but at the right price." So we're talking about the same thing. Well, the right price, that's what we're all about at Capology. I'm telling you the right price on compensation is a third. And I'm telling you that his contract is not an impediment to make a deal. So if you're on the over, I'll take I think it's going to be right on the line. I'll go all the way up to a second, but I think one is a little out of round. But hey, the truth is that we don't know. We're going to see, right?
Absolutely. Hey, and like I said, I'm excited because I feel like I've been seeing this on my pod. I said, when I started this pod, I said, this year is the year of building a team. the next year is the year to start contending for Super Bowls. And when I said it, people were like, ha, 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 it's crazy. The defense super exceeded my expectations. Defense still has some tweaks, still has some work to do, but we have an almost elite type defense, right? Like I always say, the window. You have all these quarterbacks that are drafted, right? When quarterbacks are drafted and they're good, you have that window. You have that 2 to 3 year window to go all in to get that Super Bowl because you've paid everybody else but the quarterbacks. But in our situation, the defense is the strength of this team. The defensive line is a strength. So you have a lot of these guys under rookie deals. This is the time to go all in. If you get you a quarterback that fits the system, that can take care of the ball, that can do some things that we like, we are in contention for a Super Bowl. As crazy as that sounds, I believe that wholeheartedly. That's why I'm all in on getting an established quarterback. Why? Because even if we do, let's say we get a Fields in the draft. Let's say we trade 2 first-round picks. We get Fields, or 3, right? Because he's one of the top tier quarterbacks coming out the draft. He's supposed to be the next blah, 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 right? If we do that deal, can that rookie actually get us to where we want to go immediately? Because I am in win mode now.
Yeah.
And I feel the only way that we can be in win mode now is to get one of these quarterbacks. Like I said, Stafford is number 1 for me on my list. I think that Deshaun and even Aaron Rodgers are out of the picture. They're out of the picture. But we're going to talk Aaron Rodgers in just a minute. So if you get a guy like Stafford or Carr, guys that are established, guys that know the game, that can play the game, and I feel like those kinds of guys can get us to that next level.
I agree. I think that's the way to go, and that's where I would go. I go on the high side of Carr. Stafford would be the very high, but realistically a Carr, and on the low side, I would be in the Fitzpatrick area. There's going to be something in between there that's going to be a value, and somebody's going to drop because we're going to have cap casualties going on. We're going to have some trades going on, and I just don't think that you're going to have to give that much draft capital to get a Carr after the frenzy goes on Watson and Stafford and Rodgers.
I'm going to give you 2 more names. and I'm going to give you a wild. So the next guy, so I've done option A, Stafford, option B, Carr, option 3. Now, I don't necessarily, I like this. You know what? Option 3, option C, Carson Wentz. I think that Carson Wentz is a very good quarterback, but I do not like the contract. So the other, like the last 2 guys on my list, option C for me is Carson Wentz. Option D, the next option is Jared Goff. I do not like Jared Goff contract, but I feel like he can do some things for us. When we talk about gunslingers, when we talk about guys that can bring us back when you're losing, guys that can throw. Because look, having a quarterback is cool, but what's the point of having a quarterback that does not throw the ball? So that's kind of like where I am. If we're going to have a quarterback, let's have a quarterback. Let's have a quarterback that throws the ball. And also, I'm a fan of a quarterback that's in the pocket. I am done with the RG3s of the world. And we see Taylor Heineke played really good, dove, and the shoulder came out. So it's like these running quarterbacks. You look at Kyler Murray. Where was he in the playoffs? He wasn't around because guess what? He done ran, and then he was done. Lamar, he runs, but he doesn't pass. So for me, I love the quarterbacks that can sit in a pocket, pass, move around when they need to. So I like Carson Wentz. Talk to me about what it would take to get Carson Wentz and if that's even a good fit. I'm just,
So a week ago, I would have said, let's take a look at his contract and see where he fits. Now with their new hire at coach, I firmly believe this guy's brought in to make Carson Wentz work or not. There's time that has to expire on this contract for it to exist. Carson Wentz, 2020. So his dead cap in 2021, the best scenario is a post-June 1 cut, and it's $19.3 million. And then in 2022, you got to take 24.5 more. So we're talking a total of $43.8 million in dead cap in a reduced cap of 17%. You can see where I'm going on this thing. It's an NFW, not financially workable for anyone. It was
Right.
cheaper to bring in a coach, this was my prediction. I said, find a new coach, come back to me next year. The next week they found a new coach, and it looks like they're going to come back next year, and maybe 2 years to give this guy a chance to make it work. It's kind of like the Gruden and RG3 thing, and the coach saying, "Oh yeah, I can make him work." Well, we're going to see what happens, because it really didn't make sense for the Hurts pickup when you have that much dead and you can't do anything with Wentz until 2023, and you bring in a guy that's going to be in his third year in 2023, and you're not going to see where they're at. So I think they're going to try to make Wentz work. He doesn't go anywhere, I don't think.
Yeah, but for me, I like Wentz as a player. Prior to last year, he's always been a quarterback that gets you about 27 touchdowns and about 7 and 9 interceptions. This season, I just don't know what happens. Quarterbacks have that one bad season, and I'm just thinking this is just that one bad season.
Well,
but of course,
had one of those too.
Carr did.
When we beat up on that Monday night game.
Yeah.
And I think they were undefeated at the time.
I remember.
And
we broke.
We took care of them.
We broke them, man. After that was it. After that was it. So, the next guy on my list is Jared Goff. I think that Jared Goff is a system quarterback. He's a good quarterback, but he's a system quarterback. He's a guy that needs weapons around him. Yep. So let's say, for example, that we get Jared Goff, right, in a trade. Will we have enough money to get a primetime wide receiver? Say Allen Robinson.
Well, again, with Jared Goff, first of all, I think his coach would like to get rid of Jared Goff.
Oh yeah,
okay? I think he's had enough.
Right.
And the problem is, again, they restructured his deal only 1.5 years ago. He's got 6.8 of dead cap in 2021 and another 15 in 2022. So you're talking $21 million to have the privilege of letting go of this guy. But his contract is very high too. So now you have to find somebody who's willing to pay for Jared Goff a 4-year, $26.1 million a year deal for $104 million with $45 million in guaranteed signings still remaining. So you can't even get out of that deal if you want to, except by trade, and you got to take a $22 million hit. I think this is another one where it's a lot of talk. It's where the Rams would like to be. But they're not in this cap environment taking that type of dead hit. Now, maybe somebody out of all these that we've talked about with these big dead hits actually pulls the trigger, makes it happen. I wouldn't put my money on Goff leaving the Rams, and I also wouldn't put my money on the Redskins or anybody else taking on a $26 million contract a year for a guy that's having as many issues as he's having right now.
But we've seen the Rams do the unthinkable. Brandon Cooks,
over and over.
Concussion after concussion, boom, he gets traded. Todd Gurley, boom, he gets traded. We were thinking like, man, Todd Gurley is untouchable. He had one bad year. He had the knee. Okay, he's back. He's recovered. Rams said, nah, we got to get out of this. So they cut him before they would pay him all that money. So anything is possible. But like you said, it's just too much money. It's just too much money to be. So I don't see him getting cut. But who knows?
And then what's their answer? Then who's their answer at quarterback? Who did they bring in? That wasn't that backup. That backup was worse than Goff. So now you got to find a whole other situation.
That is true. That is true. Hey,
musical chair. Some deal that happens, right?
Right. Hey, Ryan Fitzpatrick, comes in as a bridge. They send Jared Goff to some team for, hey, Jared Goff to the Colts for a 4th-round pick. They take the contract. Rams get a 4th-round pick. They say, hey, we're done with you. Colts are like, yo, we need somebody. We have the cap room to, absorb this contract. Who knows? Then you bring in maybe a Ryan Fitzpatrick or a Jameis Winston. So a lot could happen. The teams that do have cap, I think the Colts have a lot of cap, don't they?
Yeah, they do. They have a lot of cap, and they're sitting in second, I think, in the league in cap space. I think first is Jacksonville at 65 and Indy at 61. And we're down at they're Jags 69, Indy at 68, Jets 65. We're at 32. And just when you think of this, the cap was supposed to be $34 million more. We would have been in a position right now of being somewhere around $67 million of space. And what
Right.
were they planning? What was this team planning on doing with $64 million of cap space then?
Man.
And now they're down to 32. So everybody's in that same position. They've all been sliced 34.
Right.
And to take another hit that says we're going to go ahead and get rid of Goff and anybody else and take another $19 million hit, I just don't see it happening this year. There's plenty of time to do that. Let's give him that one extra year and see if it was one of those down years, right, that we thought.
Right. Okay, so now here's my wild card. My wild card is a guy like Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold is a guy that he has one more year left on his deal. I think this is his fourth year, I believe, and I'm pretty sure he's going to get picked up with that fifth-year option. Sam Darnold is one of those guys. He's talented. I think that he's been groomed enough. You can say, oh, the Jets are terrible. But when you really sit down and watch games and kind of see the kind of throws that Sam Darnold can make, he's very talented. Now, whether it's going to work in the football team system or not, we don't know. But I believe that he's a guy that you can grab, and you don't have to give a first-round pick to get this guy. Talk to me about the possibilities of the football team getting Sam Darnold.
So my take on him is yeah, he's going into his fourth year, $4.7 million. He's got a fifth-year option. It's going to be the transition tag on the fifth-year option. It'll be somewhere in the $15 to $20 million range, depending on where the whole cap is. Mm-hmm. There's room for them to move him and save a little bit of cap. He will have a little bit of dead cap. My analysis is relatively easy to move on from a cap perspective and shed him for some draft capital. You paid a first for him. You're not going to get a first for him. You're not going to get a second for him.
Nope.
I'm looking at, and this is pre-frenzy, a fourth or a 21st third, and then asking for something in return with Darnold. So my creative solution here is I'll give you a third in 2021 for Darnold, but I want back a fifth in 2022, and I'll take Darnold. So and then you got 2 years to figure it out. So you're talking about taking a third round draft pick in 2021 on first round talent, but a guy who's being moved by the Jets without a coach. How many coaches has he been through now? You know,
right.
He hasn't proven himself. It's still one of these deals where you're wondering, is this the right guy or not? This is not proof. So now you're taking a flyer. You're taking more in the flyer vet category. I think you look at Trubisky and say, okay, he didn't do it right. He's now a backup. But you take a look at Darnold and you're saying, well, maybe he can compete. Well, how does that fit for us? You've got two guys again that need snaps. You're going to need a new third guy that hasn't proven himself. He's going to need snaps. So now you're putting a 3-for-all, but you're only spending a third rounder for it. I kind of like Darnold that's in that role and rolling the dice there and saying, okay, could he be your vet option backup with these other two guys? And let's let the best guy, let the best player win.
I mean, I think that's probably the best option in terms of financially and in terms of upside. You get a guy like Darnold, it's kind of like a wild card. It's like you don't know what you don't know what you're getting. But like you said you're getting 2 years. So you have 2 years to kind of see if he can be your guy. Right. And then if it doesn't work out,
you're only spending a third.
Exactly.
Right?
You spend a third, you have 2/3. So you spend a third, and then if you're getting a fifth back the next year, that's just the extra bonus. That's just like a cherry on top. You know what I'm saying? So then you bring in Darnold. He competes with the other guys because Ron Rivera is not going to just hand somebody the job. And then if it works, it works. But then if you look at the guys that Adam Gase has ruined when they were on the team and then they go elsewhere. So maybe this can be some post Adam Gase type magic. We don't know. Maybe he goes to another team, Washington football team, and then he just blows up. He has one of his best seasons. Maybe we put him in a situation to where we can kind of like manage his talents. Think about it. If you're bringing a guy like Darnold, he's so cheap, and then it'll kind of give you the contract flexibility that we would have had Haskins worked out. Had Haskins worked out and then Alex Smith retires or gets cut, we would have been fine. But because it didn't work out, it's like starting all over again. And then now
same draft class, right?
Exactly. That was a potential, huh?
Is it one more year he had?
I think he came in a draft that had Saquon Barkley. Baker Mayfield. Yeah, Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold. I want to say Josh Allen was in that draft.
Josh Allen.
I want to say Josh Allen. Maybe Josh Rosen.
One year more, but and your point is well taken. Is that where's that young quarterback where we have a 5th-year option, and we can obtain that for some sort of mid-round pick that allows us to have that flexibility, see what develops, and not have to go all in with the Stafford and put the 2 number 1s out there. Allows you also, now you got your quarterback filled. What do we say he's going to be? $4.7 million. We're getting rid of Alex Smith. You're looking at savings of $19 million when you do an Alex Smith post June 1 cut for the 5.4. You save 19 minus the 4. My math's not great, but that's $15 million. That sounds like a very good WR, a little wide receiver action to be able to help things out with McLaurin and beef up. So you get a potential quarterback. You have Heineke. You got Allen. You got him fighting it out. If this guy develops and comes in, either way, you're giving it a good old college try here on the quarterback spot, and you're able to improve the team on the offensive side of the ball with the wide out, which I don't think we have the money to do if we go after it with Stafford.
Exactly. And I think this is like the best scenario that we can come up with is where we bring in Darnold, compete with the other guys. And then if he doesn't work, you just wasted a 3rd-round pick or, 3rd-round pick. Okay, yeah. 3rd-round picks are valuable because of Antonio Gibson, Terry McLaurin. But then at the end of the day, you still get to keep that 1st-round flexibility to where you can draft your next franchise-type player and have that 5th-year option. That 1st-round pick is very important, even if it's pick 32. We've seen what happened with Lamar Jackson when the Ravens got him dead last in the 1st round. Now they have that flexibility to 5th-year him when it's time. So losing 1st-round picks is tough. I'm only willing to give a 1st-round pick for Stafford, or possibly Carr. I know that's too high. Possibly the best scenario is
you got a good price on him.
Yeah, and even getting a guy like Tua. Tua is another option if, let's say, Deshaun Watson goes to Miami, and then let's say Houston says, "Oh no, we're not touching Tua." You know what I'm saying? Then you're able to get Tua for maybe a second, because being in the second
first.
Once it's like a car. When you buy that 4Runner off the lot brand new, right, and you go to sell it, you're never going to get that value that you paid for.
Car, okay. I thought you were telling me Derek Carr, but you're right. That's exactly right. It smells rosiny, right? It smells very rosin, where you put everything in behind this quarterback, and then next year the talk is already to move him. Now Tagovailoa, Tua's got a very similar kind of of situation going on with Sam Darnold just 2 years earlier. He's got a 5th option. You're looking at a little bit of dead cap for Miami to get rid of, but they got space. So you're looking at my analysis. He's a crapshoot right now. There's doubts about him in South Florida. He isn't worth but a 1/3 in my book, and has up to a 4-year investment that you got to keep him because it's all guaranteed. So there's a downside of him flopping. I think it's a pass for us. I think we need the established vet. I don't think we need a 3rd player that still needs to gain reps in order to be a starter.
I agree.
But I think he stays put in Miami. They do have to take some dead cap, 13.7 to get rid of him over the next 2 years. They could do it cheaper in 2021, but I really believe that they got to double down, just like Wentz has to double down, just like Goff has to double down, and stick around for one more year, and then maybe have the next round of frenzies for quarterbacks.
All right, so here's what we agree on. We do agree that the football team need a quarterback, right? We do agree that Deshaun Watson is going to be so expensive. If you get a Deshaun Watson, you'll be losing a very good player, a very good starter, and then you'll lose the flexibility to get a really good wide receiver in the draft. I mean, look, Terry McLaurin is not enough, Okay, guys like Rodgers are not coming here to just have Terry and nobody else on the other side. You look at guys like Carson Wentz, Goff, guys like that. We say no. We don't even talk about guys like Jimmy G because that's just a whole other ball game with injuries and contract situations. And he's one of those guys that's kind of like, I don't know.
Still unproven. We don't know what he can do. How many years does he have in the league? And they're paying him $27 million a year or something crazy like that. It just doesn't make sense for him to come into us, for us to assume that type of contract, take up all of our cap. Yeah, I completely agree. But I think the Tua, I think the Darnold, I think getting something for a mid-level. I like the idea of Carr. I think all of these are upgrades of where we are right now. We just don't know where things are going to turn out. But it's something more than what we have. And I think Rivera can come out and say, it doesn't have to be a wide receiver. It could be that middle linebacker that we're looking for. And remember, I started this off by saying the teams that are going to do well, you say the rich are going to get richer. The teams that have the cash cushion and the options, because there's going to be players that get cut because of COVID and this cap situation. You're not going to believe it. And are we going to have any dollars available to do anything with them? And that's kind of where I want to kind of bring it full circle. We said they got $32 million in cap space right now. There's a couple of key veterans that we need to sign from free agency. Brandon Sheriff, number one.
Right.
That's $15 million.
Highest paid guard.
$15 million. His market value is 11. His franchise tag was 15 because they mixed it in with the tackles. So we really don't know where it's going to come out. And we're in the COVID year. Guy does everything he's supposed to do. He's an all-pro. He's a leader. He's a captain. He's on the offensive line. We all value the offensive line, but some people will still say some disparaging things about whatever in the offensive line about him not being worth it. My opinion, you got to sign him. So take $15 million straight off of it. You get rid of Smith, so you clear some back. But then you got to look at Darby. What are your thoughts on Darby? He was a starting corner. He's got a market value of $10.4 million. What do you do in that position? Because he's a free agent.
He's earned it. You got to pay him. I would try to get 8, maybe 9, but maybe like a longer term deal and try to get, save money that way. But yeah, Darby, he is for sure supposed to be on the roster. I mean, he outplayed Kendall Fuller at times, even though Kendall Fuller had those 4 interceptions. If you look at who's actually defending, it was Darby. Yeah. He had a lot of pass defense. I mean, people look at the interception numbers. Who cares? I look at, were you able to defend? And he was able to defend. He was the best corner, in my opinion, on the team this year, and he's earned that. He was fairly healthy. He's earned that. So you got to pay him. So when you look at
you did the 1 year prove it or lose it deal, right?
Yep.
And he proved it.
Yep.
And now his market value is 10.4. I think we get a hometown discount. I think we get a little COVID discount. I target right around 8.8.
Yep.
And I think it'll be a 2-3 year deal. And it'll go maybe, 6.8, 8.8, 10.8.
Right.
Or 6.8, 8.8, 11. And you give him something to work towards and you fit it into the cap. If he's the guy, or is there going to be a cap casualty out there on a starting corner that you can now bring in and it'll be, superior to Darby and you're able to fit him under that $10 million a year? And do you have that flexibility to do so because you let that, maybe you let that negotiation wait until the end? You see, we're talking about all this stuff before the league year. The league year doesn't even start until March.
Exactly.
We're starting to make commitments on a quarterback early, like a Stafford, let's say, and we've taken away these draft picks and we've already got him lock solid in there, then you're limiting your options when all these slicing and dicing comes along.
Right.
So
you get Stafford now.
So to your point,
Darby's going to be expensive.
Going to be expensive. So you got the $32 million. You take care of Smith. You take care of Sheriff. You take care of Darby, and you come down to a subtotal. And that subtotal, after you're looking at also paying for your draft picks. Got to remember, you got to reserve $7 million to take care of the draft picks that we have. So if you're doing all of that, you're sitting at a point where you're probably looking at $20 million of free space to sign a quarterback and hopefully sign a wide receiver in free agency, which ain't happening. The math doesn't work out.
You're right.
So then you start getting creative. Then you start moving things around, and maybe you save a couple million here and a couple million there. But then you also got to sign Heineke. You also got to sign Kyle Allen. You got to sign Cam Sims, most likely. You got to sign Sundberg, the guy who snaps for you. And then what are you going to do about it? So you got all those things that are also probably about $5 to $10 million that you're going to have to deal with. There's not a lot of money out there. There's going to be a lot of casualties. And
Wes Martin is gone.
I've never been lambasted more on a post than what I did and said about possibly taking a look at these defensive interior linemen and saying, can we keep all or do we need to get rid of one?
No. One got to go.
And everybody's saying, no way, you're crazy. We don't get rid of one. But if you look where we are right now in the Jonathan Allen contract, we got $10 million completely guaranteed. We've already signed up for it. It may be a way to shuttle off a contract and get value for him now, because I'm not sure if we're going to be able to sign him, Settle, Ioannidis, and Payne over the next 2.5 years.
Yeah, I see a scenario where 2 out of the 4 are gone. I'm hoping that we can keep 3, but in order to keep 3, you got to get a Tim Settle extension done now. You got to get Tim Settle done now. We've already done Ioannidis already. Great contract. So then now it's like Payne is younger. You got to keep Payne, but then Allen was so good. So it's like it's a good problem to have. That's why I'm like almost all in on Darnold, because those 2 years that we can get out of Darnold can really help the core of the defense. And like I said, if the defense gets weaker at the defensive line, then what do we have? There's not really a position that we have that's particularly strong. You can make a case for the corner group with Kendall Fuller and Darby. I mean, linebackers is weak. You know what I'm saying? Safety is terrible. I mean, we don't know what to do with Collins. And if we can trade Collins for a third or fourth to free up some cap, that would be great. I mean, you have Cam Carl, who played very, very well. So I've heard moving Landon Collins to linebacker and this and that. So we are in a unique position. We got to sign some key guys. We got to trade some key guys, and we need a quarterback. So we'll see what happens. Do you have anything else to add before we wrap up?
Yeah. So you mentioned Collins. Collins is another one where we're going to have to take $13.8 million in dead cap over 2 years to get rid of him. And who's going to take over a 4-year times $13 million average annual value of $52 million contract as a favor to us? I don't see that happening. This is another one we're going to have to sit around. We're going to have to take. You got Curl, you got Collins, you got dime linebackers, you got slot corners. One can play the free. He can still play the strong safety, box safety. I think we got our safeties covered from that angle. I think you pick up somebody in the draft to be a true free safety, and you find yourself a middle linebacker, and you work on the core. But just the last thing I'd like to put in there, you mentioned it. There's a window. There's a window of opportunity right now, and there's the group of fans that sit there and look at it and say, we can't weaken our core. Don't take anything away from our defense. And then you have the other side that's saying, we can't sit here and waste this window of opportunity, because the window of opportunity is right now. And if we keep on playing around with the Darnold, maybe even if you're talking about Carr, or you're going less with the Fitzgerald, and you're playing with an injured Allen and an injured Heineke, I think I just wasted 3 years of all of our time talking about these quarterbacks that never had the talent to really make it happen. Right. So that brings us right back. That brings us right back to the top guys. By the way, Rodgers isn't going anywhere. Don't worry about it. They ain't gonna happen. And Stafford's gonna get the most play. So we're either gonna have to be on the very, very edge there, come down. I'll meet you in the middle on a car, and let's see what happens. How about we do that? Just see what happens. Close the book on that one.
Let's see what happens. And before we go, I got to ask you one more question. If the Detroit Lions call tomorrow morning and say, hey, if you give us Big Matt Ioannidis and the first and pick 19 for Stafford, would you do it? Or Big Matt?
I was ready to do it with Allen. I was ready to do it with Allen. With Ioannidis, you have you actually have dead cap considerations, and it's not as attractive for us, but it's more attractive for them because he's more under contract. So I would look at some sort of cap and trade type of deal with Allen, so they could push that out. And if they called me on Allen, as much as I love Allen, and he's the Redskin that everybody loves, and he's a captain, and he's exactly a Rivera guy, he would be the person out of the four in the middle that I would look at moving, just from timing and where we're at. And I think, he did have some injury problems his first year, towards the end of his first year, or it may have been his second. Ioannidis is having his injury problems this year. He's coming off of it. I like them all. I want to keep them all. I want to keep Settle. I think signing Settle is the best idea I heard of the night, doing that early. And doing that in conjunction with maybe one of these other DTs leaving.
Exactly. And I think, like, if you can secure a Settle, you secure Matt. Honestly, Matt and Settle can hold it down, to be honest. I mean, the key on that defensive line. Yeah, and Payne. The key on that defensive line is keeping Montez Sweat and Chase Young together as long as possible. And I think they're going to have at least another 3 years to go at it together before we can talk about Montez leaving or this or that. So, guys, this is the episode. Mr. Tony, where can the people find you on social media?
Redskins, just come on over to Redskins Hub, everybody. We have a real good group there. We try to keep it clean, keep it fun, and then you can see us on NFL Capology. We're on Instagram at Redskins Hub. We're on Redskins Hub on Twitter. So wherever you're at, we're there, and we just do the best we can to talk ball and talk the Cap, and we're enjoying it. This is our time of the year.
Awesome. So, guys, once again, you're listening to the Back Row Redskins show. You guys can find me on Twitter at Back Row Redskins. You guys be safe. You guys stay safe out there. COVID is real. Wash your hands. Wear your mask. I love you guys. I'm out. Peace.
Thanks,
yes, sir.